What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about beginner loadouts for brand new Escape for Tarkov players. We're talking about the players that are stuck between the leveled 1 to 10 area that don't have access to the flea market and are forced to buy everything directly from their dealers. Now, over the last couple weeks, the developers have actually greatly expanded the number of options available to level 1 players to the point where I'm actually kind of shocked that I wasn't aware of this already, and it took me a couple days ago to figure out that you actually have some pretty decent options now whenever you first start the game. Now, mind you, you can build most of the weapons that I'm going to be talking about today for far cheaper if you have access to the flea market, but because you only have access to the dealers between that level 1 to 10 window, well, you're going to be spending a lot more than the typical player, and you can greatly reduce the prices if you find some of these weapons in your raid. Thankfully, they're extremely common, or modify things a little bit different like AK-74s and stuff like that with similar types of weapons. For example, the Vepr, as you see right here on my screen, if you find like an AKM or an AK-74, you can interchange some of these modifications and build pretty decent weapons at the very beginning. So to kind of give you a little bit more of an idea of what I'm talking about, historically speaking, really the SKS, the regular SKS, has been one of the go-to starting weapons because you can shoot the PS round, one of the only beginning starter rounds that is capable of reliably penetrating class 4 body armor. That's what makes it such a decent starting round, where a lot of the other ones like PS, Tracer, PRS, not really solid available options. Things like the Keter that's available on Prapor. You also have the MP5K, which is not super desirable for beginning players because it takes a little bit of skill to use because it's got a lot of vertical and horizontal recoil. And then also things like the Vepr 209, which I'm still going to be talking about in today's video. And weapons like the Vepr 136 and the Adar were barters, but not available right away. Now, a lot of things have changed. As you can see, you can now purchase a Vepr 136. You can purchase an Adar directly with rubles, and the Vepr is a little bit different. I'm going to talk about that later and why this might be a decent beginner option for some players. But also you're seeing the OP SKS with a 20-round magazine. This is probably one of the biggest changes that's going to greatly enable brand new players to the game. I know the regular SKS was a traditional starting weapon, but because you were basically limited to iron sights, it was not my favorite recommendation for brand new people to the game. But now that you have the ability to put a side-mounted PSO or Cobra sight, it actually is not a bad option. Now, there is one catch: JEAGER. So you won't have access to JEAGER level 1. JEAGER level 1 will sell you the OP SKS, but you can accept this mission right away at level 1 from the trader mechanic. And if you go to a link listed in the description box below of this video, it will show you exactly how to do that mission, and I will also include a link to the Escape for Tarkov wiki if you want more information on new woods. But because you can accept and unlock JEAGER technically in your first raid that you ever do, then having access to the OP SKS is essentially available to you right away. Now, on top of being able to purchase these weapons, you also have and ammunition types, you also have more modification options for some of the weapons, specifically the Vepr 136. You can modify the Veprs pretty well, the VPO and the 136, pretty extensively actually, to make them look like mid-tier weapons. The Adar doesn't have nearly as many options, but because you can do some things like changing out the gas tubes, you are able to change some optical choices to make it a lot more viable at the beginning than what you would initially expect. So with that being said, we're going to be taking a look first with the OP SKS. So if you were able to do that JEAGER mission right away, say at level 1, or just basically play woods until you get unlocked, then you have the ability to purchase this weapon. Now, what makes this so good is on Peacekeeper level 1, you are able to purchase 20-round magazines now for the SKS, which is so surprising. So that is probably one of the biggest changes for brand new players to the game, because the 20-round magazine capacity, which is capable of reloading manually or top loading in your raid. Top loading is basically you put the gun here, You press R, you will reload the rounds directly into your gun. If you purchase additional magazines, you will just reload the actual magazine and you'll be good to go. So having both options is great for a variety of different reasons, but mainly just for usability and variability when it comes to your body armor and your chest rigs. Now, on top of that, available on level 1 Prapor, you have 2 clear optical choices. You can use a Cobra Ekp Mount, which is not the worst optic. A lot of people have been really enjoying this lately, including myself. There's a couple pros and cons to this, but for the most part, it's a fairly reliable optic, and it's an ergonomic positive optic because whenever you use the Cobra shade, you actually negate any sort of ergonomic loss. And I know if you're a brand new player to the game, that's not going to mean that much, but basically it's a solid optic, more or less. But you can also use a PSO, which is a magnified optic, a fairly cheap and accessible one that's pretty simplistic, and it's going to allow you to take out players and scavengers at a distance and compete, which is awesome because these PS rounds are actually pretty decent at landing headshots. So you have a pretty awesome pocket DMR right away available at level 1, which is super accessible, reliable, and a lot of players, experience, intermediate, all above the board, really revere the SKS's ability to kill PMCs and get things done, especially with simple things like just a PSO. So the fact that that's available right away is pretty phenomenal. Now we're gonna move down to the Vepr 136. This has always been one of my favorite weapons in Escape for Tarkov. I have always preferred the Vepr over the OP SKS, and now you can even expand this more at level 1 than you ever could before. So what makes this so exciting is at level 1 skier, you can buy a Bastion dust cover now. So that means that you can put mounted optics. You get an RP1, that's kind of optional for just ergonomics. I'm gonna purchase this Zenit foregrip for a minute, just because, you know, you can get a nice little foregrip. But the main reason why I'm purchasing that foregrip is you can actually get a railed handguard at level 1 Prapor now, which actually gives you pretty decent stats and allows you to mount flashlights and grips. You can also get polymer pistol grips and a polymer buttstock if you want a little bit of extra ergonomics. And you can actually dress up your weapon to look pretty unique. Oh, I can't forget about this either. At level 1 Prapor, you can now buy 30-round magazines. In the past, you couldn't do that. You can only purchase 10-round magazines. So the fact that you can now buy unlimited 30-round magazines for both the VPO and the Vepr is awesome. Very exciting and makes it very competitive to the OP SKS now that you can buy those 20-round magazines from Peacekeeper level 1. So let's pop over to the Vepr here, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we'll use the polymer pistol grip, polymer buttstock. We'll throw the railed polymer handguard with the RK6 that we purchased. We'll remove the dust cover and add the Bastion that we purchased as well. So, and also the charging handle. So this Vepr 136, which shoots a very decent round, semi-automatic, but still, it's a solid weapon, is completely available to level 1 players now. Now, when it comes to optics for the Vepr 136, you also have a number of options. You have the Cobra, of course, over on Prapor level 1. Now, unfortunately, you cannot put a PSO on the Vepr. It doesn't have the dovetail attachment that allows you to actually put that on the weapon. Over on Peacekeeper, you have the Burris Fastfire optic, and if you've done the quest, the T1 reflex sight, most likely you won't have this sight purchased at this point in the game, so it's understandable that you won't be able to use that. You have the ability to purchase this tactical TBL blue laser, which a lot of players, intermediate, expert, and beginner, do prefer. So it gives you a very nice aim point for point firing and just allows you to see the general area and where you're shooting. So that allows you to side mount that. And although you're not able to mount a PSO, you do have a mid to long range option, the Palad. I know it seems a little crazy, but I've actually ran this before. To experienced players, you're probably thinking I'm nuts, but this is actually not as bad as you think, especially when it comes to availability at level 1. I know it absolutely looks goofy, but like I said, with the combination of a laser combo or a tactical device, there's also another one, I believe, on mechanic. If you're looking for an additional laser, this Glock tactical GL21 flashlight with laser combo is actually one of the best starting. It's a little pricey though, but you get the flashlight and a laser combo if you want that for clearing buildings and blinding your enemies. It is available right there, but it's not a horrible choice, right? It's not a horrible choice. Now, obviously, in terms of optical choices, you don't have that many available to you until you unlock the flea market. So you're pretty much set to using iron sights, Cobras, the T1 if you haven't unlocked, the Burris, or the Palad. But you know what? Like I said, for level 1 traders, this is actually pretty decent, and I've personally been able to use this exact weapon build to kill PMCs across the board from all skill levels. Now we are going to be moving on to the famous Adar 215. Now this is a Russian version of the AR-15, and it is a 5.56 semi-automatic rifle shooting the M855 round. Now the M855 round is not as bad as people make it out to be. It's got about 30 pen, so that means that it won't be able to reliably penetrate class 4 armor all the time, but with enough shots, you will be able to kill those players. It's incredibly accurate, very fast moving bullet, so it will be able to kill people who are wearing class 4 helmets, which is definitely the most popular choice of helmet amongst all Escape for Tarkov players, and it can easily go through class 3 face shields, which is also the most popular face shield level amongst Escape for Tarkov players. Now, when you start fighting players that are wearing things like Altons, obviously, this is not going to get the job done, but for the most part, for a level 1 bullet, it is very competitive and comparable to the PS, and I don't think it gets as much credit as it honestly deserves. Now with the Adar, you are not able to modify it at level 1 as much as a Vepr or AK series, but you are able to do some things. Now, of course, if you head over to Prap War, you are able to mount a Cobra optic with the shade right away, and you do not have to really modify it at all. You just like buy the attachment, chuck it on the gun, and you are good to go. There will be no conflict with the front iron sight. But unfortunately, with a lot of the other options for optics that are available, either the ones that you find in Raid or the ones that you purchase, say that you buy a Burris optic from Peacekeeper level 1, which is right over here. You buy the Weaver base, remove that, and we will add our Weaver base here. Now, if you prefer this optic, which I know it seems small and ridiculous, but it's actually not a bad option for level 1. Even it looks ridiculous. Just here, I'm going to take you guys over to my hideout just to show you that it's not a bad red dot, but I will show you why this is a problem when it comes to the gas tube. We're gonna head over to my hideout, to my firing range here. And as you can see, the red dot is actually particularly decent, but there's conflict with the iron sight. But thankfully, there is a solution available at level 1. If you head over to Mechanic, you can purchase the Mark 12 low profile gas block, and this is going to allow you to do a lot more things with your level 1 Adar. So you absolutely need to purchase this if you decide to use a different optic other than iron sights or the Cobra. So simply go to your Adar and remove the gas tube. Now you won't have your workbench, so you'll have to just drag and drop. But if you do that, you'll be able to easily and safely use your Burris red dot, which is not that bad of a level 1 option at all. It's a little fuzzy and it's not super accurate for the mid-range, but if you have players that are pushing close or scavengers, it's not that bad at all. Now, another thing is, say you want to use this Adar 215 for some distance, then you are also going to have to remove that gas block, and the only real long-range option that you have is a Palad scope. But as you can see, it doesn't look that bad. It sits a little low in the gun, but for the most part, it's actually a pretty decent weapon. Not that bad, especially when it comes to level 1 weapons and the lack of options. Now again, you have access to level 1 30 round magazines for the Adar, and also 20s if you like, but the 30s are probably what I would recommend. Modifications for the Adar are commonly found in weapon crates, but honestly, the Adar is a semi-automatic weapon that doesn't necessarily rely on modifications nearly as much. Most of the semi-autos, especially the smaller rifle calibers in Tarkov, are perfectly controllable without a whole lot of additional modifications, so you're gonna be just fine. Now, I know for some of you intermediate and expert level players, you're probably wondering, what the hell is the AKM VPO 209 doing with the list of the following weapons? I left it to last because of one reason. It is the only rifle, well, technically not a rifle, but bear with me. It is the only rifle style weapon that can be suppressed at level 1 now. So you can no longer buy the DT suppressor from Peacekeeper level 1, which means that if you want to get a suppressor, you have to go through and purchase it from, I believe it is Skier level 1 here. Let me just bear with me here. Yes, the Rotor 43 suppressor is available on level 1 Skier. So we're gonna pop over here and you buy the suppressor. So if you're interested, you can switch out a wood stock for a polymer stock, pistol grip. You can even get the Wars, the wooden CAF Wars handguard if you were interested in that. If you didn't want to go for something that was a rail or a module, you can get this from Peacekeeper level 1. But I personally prefer the polymer series because it allows you to, have a little bit more functionality, especially if you find modifications in your raid. We're gonna go and use that. There's the Glock 21 that's available on level 1 mechanic that I talked about a little bit earlier. We will whip out the Bastion, and let's just say for good measure, let's use the Weaver that is available from level 1 Peacekeeper. And here we go. So all of these attachments are available from level 1 traders. This is just kind of being weird, that Glock Tactical. I'll just ignore it and purchase it manually myself over on mechanic level 1. Wouldn't be an Escape for Tarkov weapon video if it wasn't for weird functioning presets. Kind of comes with the territory. And there you go. You have a suppressed semi-automatic weapon. And the EKO round is not a horrible starting round. It's not nearly as good as the M855 or the PS. The velocity is going to be, well, it's a little bit faster than the PS, but it doesn't have as much accuracy and it doesn't have as much penetration power as that weapon. It does do, I believe, slightly more damage. You might have to look that up. I don't have the ammo tables right available to me. With slightly more damage, less accuracy, but not as much pen. However, this will kill players with class 3 body armor. With consecutive hits, you will destroy class 4 body armor. With all of these rounds, whenever you start getting into the class 5 territory, you're going to be struggling anyway. So you don't really have a whole lot of options until you unlock level 10 to get the flea market. But it doesn't sound that bad, and it actually functions a lot better than you'd think. Obviously, any of these guns are more than capable of killing scab bosses, scavengers, and mid to low level players. And overall, it's actually not a bad starting choice. So that's why I wanted to add it to this list, especially if you are looking to be suppressed. And just like the Vepr, you can get 30 round magazines for this weapon at level 1 from Prap War level 1. Now, although you have these 4 suggestions that I'm making right here, you obviously have lots of other options, and I'm sure I'm going to be hearing about it in the comment section. But what about this weapon? What about that weapon? Now, you have the classic SKS, which is available no strings attached with a 10-round integrated magazine. Because I'm not a big fan of the iron sights, I don't really like suggesting this rifle too much to new players, even though it's pretty decent from a value perspective and it does pack a punch. It is not a terrible option. The PPSH is now available at level 1. Not something that I personally enjoy using very much, but it is definitely a contender if you're looking to experiment and try out different things. These SMGs can be extremely deadly, especially CQB and against enemies that are not wearing face shields. The Keter is another favorite when it comes to keeping things on a budget and having the low recoil, high rate of fire ability on level 1. Not a bad choice. Moving over to Peacekeeper, we also have the MP5K that's available at level 1 with the ability to use 30 round magazines. The catch here is it kind of kicks like a mule, and I'll show you what I mean. It is not like a traditional MP5 with the stock, because you don't have a stock and you're kind of just doing your best to use it. Head over to the hideout here. It is not that easy to control, but because if it's low cost and super accessible ammunition, it's not that bad. That was me just shooting it without trying to control the recoil. This will be me in a crouch controlling. Oh. It's on full auto. It's semi-auto. So as you can see, it's kind of flying all over the place, but if you get enough magazines and you're suppressing your target, you can definitely land some shots, but it's not as reliable as some of these other options here. Another notable mention, of course, is the Mosin, but the changes to the LPS round make it not super reliable. You'll be able to one-tap players with a Class 4 helmet, sometimes even Class 5 if you're super lucky. But when it comes to thorax shots, arm shots, leg shots, stomach shots, you're going to need a lot of hits to kill players that are running anything meaningful, and therefore, in a bolt action, not super reliable and not a huge recommendation, especially for new players that are going to be predominantly playing maps like customs and woods. Now, obviously, you have a large variety of pistols, but to me, pistols are just pistols. Like, they're capable, but not as capable as semi-automatic rifles and other weapons that are available to you. And last but certainly not least, you have pump action shotguns. Now, pump action shotguns are actually not that bad because with 7mm and 6.5mm buck, all you need to do is land a single pellet in the face to kill your enemy. But the catch is, it's a pump shotgun, and if you're going up against somebody who's using like an SMG, a low recoil rifle, a high-hitting 308 7.60x54, some of those larger caliber weapons, then they're most likely going to be able to kill you before you can get your second shot in. But shotguns are devastating, especially if you aim for the legs, aim for the head. Pretty decent, but I would only really recommend shotguns whenever you can get access to the MP153 or the Saiga 12, and you can find those in your raid, and if you can get your hands on it, definitely something that's consider using before level 10, but not as good in my opinion as some of the other weapons. Same thing with the VPO-215. This is a bolt action rifle that shoots essentially the same round as the 209. And because you do have the suppressor and you do have the Palad, you do have a suppressed bolt action rifle that is capable at some distance, but you won't have access to the armor piercing 366 round, which makes this a pretty decent gun. So because of that, not a strong recommendation that I can make for new players. And I'm sure I'm going to be seeing people mention the Taz, probably the most memed gun in the entire game. But regardless, the fact that you can build weapons that look like this on level 1 traders means that I think the devs are actually starting to listen to some of the suggestions that are being made by the community, and you literally didn't have that many choices before, and especially now since we're in an environment where there's so much expensive equipment that's running around all over the place. For brand new players, it can be extremely difficult just to make it to that level 10 flea market to buy competitive equipment. So with that being said, I'm kind of happy with the changes. The only thing that I would personally like to see is an AK-74 variant, maybe just the AK-74 without the dovetail, available on level 1 traders, specifically Prap War, and that would be a particularly happy camper. Anyways, guys, I digress. I've been kind of talking a lot here. I hope you guys found this video informative and useful, especially if you know somebody who is struggling between the level 1 to 10 category, or if you're a player that's looking for some more weird budget options, or just level 1 builds, or maybe you're going to wipe your account and start again. Whatever you're going to be doing, these are some cool weapon builds that are available without access to any flea market or additional trader levels. Let me know what you think in the comment section below and some of your weapon builds that you prefer to use. And I will catch you guys during the next Escape for Tarkov video here or on the live stream Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.